Wethersfield, Connecticut, my hometown, celebrates its 375th anniversary. 5 generations of British colonists lived here before the American Revolution. Descendants of these early colonists were the kids my brother Spiro and I grew up with. They knew who their ancestors were and where they came from. Of course, we wondered, what about us? Who were our ancestors?
When I was young, maybe about 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old, I realized that all my friends were going off to the Congregationalist church on Sunday. And so I went to my mother and father and I said, now, why are these people going out to the Congregationalist church and we go off to this strange church? And they said, oh, that's because we're Greek. I said, oh, Greek? Well, why should we be Greek and they not be Greek? So that's the way you're born. We come from, a place that's different than them. They're all English and German, and so they go to these churches and you go to this church. But you're very unique because there aren't many Greeks, very few Greeks, and you should be proud of that.
We were 100% Greek, like Socrates and Homer. But like Homer, our Greek grandparents didn't actually come from Greece. They came from Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey.
So the Greeks had been there since about 1500 BC. For 3,500 years, Greeks lived on the shore of Asia Minor. And that's where Greek civilization really started.
Our 4 grandparents migrated to the U.S. in the early 1900s, before all Christians were forced to leave Turkey. Our mother's parents, Spiro and Hadi, and our father's parents, James and Dorothea. Each came as an unmarried adult with little money and few belongings. Dorothea, an orphan, spoke little of her past. Although she carried mementos from across the ocean, she told us no stories. But Dorothea brought the most important link to the ancestors within her own cells. A tightly packed genealogical history encoded in her DNA. A code passed on to my brother and I through my father and combined with the DNA code from each of our other 3 grandparents as well. Since we don't have records, could we search within our own cells? Could a DNA testing company like DNA Tribes reveal clues that would help us find out more about our family origins? I asked Patricia Stish, a population geneticist.
DNA Tribes is a company that offers services to families like you that are interested in understanding their ancestry. And what they do is they use a suite of about 20 markers that are biparentally inherited. So that means you're able to see the contribution from your mother as well as your father. So you're looking at an individual as a whole, as the combination of 2 families. What they've done is they've assayed about 800 populations around the world, and they're using that as a reference. Because you'd prefer to stay out of the testing as the filmmaker, the best option is your full sibling brother because you share 50% of your genes.
Are we ready to do this?
Yeah, you know what you're going to do?
Yes. I'm going to brush firmly on the inside of both cheeks a total of 30 times for about 1 minute. And but what do I do? After taking the samples, let the swabs air dry for 30 minutes. And ship immediately.
We followed all the simple instructions. He scraped his cheek cells, we sealed it up and mailed it to DNA Tribes. My brother's cheek cells. What genetic codes did they contain? What would we find out? While we were waiting 2 weeks for the results, I brushed up on meiosis, or how reproductive cells are created. The eggs and sperm have only 1/2 of each pair of the 23 chromosomes that make up human cells. I could imagine my parents' chromosomes meeting for the first time. My mother's egg with 23 chromosomes made up of genetic code from Yaya Hadi and Papu Spiro. And my father's sperm made up of genetic code from Papu James and Yaya Dorothea. The particular egg and the particular sperm that became my brother is a unique blend of genetic material, a trading of chromosomal codes across the pairs, accomplished in the process of meiosis, an efficient way of creating unique members of the species.
As I indicated to you before, the results that come back from DNA tribes give us a probability of identity to these reference populations around the world. And it seems, given your brother's results here, that he's got high probabilities of identity in Eastern Europe, a little bit in Northern Europe, and Turkey, a very strong identity.
Wait a minute. Weren't we supposed to be 100% Greek?
You wouldn't expect, given the nature of humans as a species, to find a pure line. We see a strong Turkish background, but we also see some Italian and some Northern European. The Italian is actually fairly strong as well. And so this is a good place for you to compare your brother's genetic profile with your mother's, because this is how we can start to identify which ancestral histories came from which side of your family, your paternal or maternal side.
Luckily, my mother was a good sport and agreed to do the DNA tribes test.
This is Part C, High Resolution Global Population Match.
She has more of a Turkish background than your brother does.
Part C, Global Population Match. Turkey, Austria, Taiwanese, China, Northern Greece, Estonia, Scotland.
She also has a little bit of identity with Northern Europe, in the Finland region, but Turkish is most strong in her profile.
She was a little skeptical about the Turkish
all
genes.
Gone and scattered. So it's very hard. It's not like you live in England and you'll always live in England or even in America for generations. So you can go back and say, well, my great-great-great-great-grandfather. I can't possibly know who my great-great-great-great-grandfather was.
It looks like he might have been Turkish. But if my mom's genes aren't Greek, what about my father's?
Because your father's deceased, a full sibling to your father would give the most closely related profile to your father.
That's my Aunt Celia Stamus, who lives in Tarpon Springs, Florida, the most Greek town in America.
So your father's sister has very strong identity with Italy. She's got a lot of Italian.
I enjoyed the result, knowing that I'm from northern Italy, but I don't put too much stock in it. I'm still wondering whether it's bona fide or not. Sorry, Denise, but that's how I feel.
We can clearly see that Italian influence in your brother that was weak is much stronger in your father's sister.
Well, so much for being 100% Greek. The myth of our ethnic purity was busted, and we're not alone.
Spencer Wells has really said it nicely, that this is a unique moment in history. He calls it the closing window, where we've converged upon a technical knowledge that allows us to investigate these relationships. However, we're so mobile and so migratory that we're really homogenizing the entire global gene pool, the population, and the signals from these distinct ancestral populations are becoming more and more faint as the years go by because of all the intermixing. And most families are going to see that in their profile, that they're not just one background, no matter what they've grown up thinking.